I was talking to somebody recently about how, like, when you're younger, people are always like, oh, if you're going into a situation and you're like being nervous or you're trying not to be nervous or whatever, people are like, oh, you need to like be yourself, just be yourself. But like, no one tells you like what being yourself is. Like, I feel like I remember, like, and not like as consciously, but I remember like having like vestiges of a thought of like, okay, you're telling me to be myself, but then that means I have to like call to mind this concretized idea of what like myself is and then be that and perform that. And like that is a whole task, right? Like I'm seeking to embody the character of something that like I am becoming slash I am, but like I have to like synthesize all these external views of what I am plus my own understanding of what I am in order to like be the what I am. And I feel like that wasn't fucking helpful. And I think it would have been more helpful if the adults who were trying to give me that advice like kind of paused and considered whether or not it was helpful for them and what is missing. And so one thing that I alter when I pass on like those words of wisdom or I try to say something similar to somebody is when I tell them like be yourself. I'm like the selfness that you are being comes from first being with yourself, right? So there's like some pre-work that needs to take place before you're in a situation where you're like nervous and you're put on the spot and someone's like take a deep breath, just be yourself. You have to have the pre-work of being present with yourself prior to that, right? So you have to have that like internal knowing of who you are that comes from being with yourself in multiple situations and seeing what it feels like to be and be with yourself without external pressures. And sometimes you can, I feel like one way to access that is like to try to find moments routinely, if not every once in a while, to sit in quiet with yourself for just a few minutes, which sounds so intimidating. And I think a lot of us are like intimidated by it or scared by it or disgusted by it or bored by it. You know what I mean? And it's not until you get into that space of just being with yourself and in the quiet by yourself that you're like, hey, this isn't that bad. Or actually, I was able to navigate this a little bit better than I thought. And consistently seeing that it is okay to be with just you, like getting that affirmation that to just be with yourself or to be alone with yourself can be as incredibly fulfilling and moving as being with someone who you deeply care about, right? And like that, I think kind of speaks to the needing some time with yourself to like gain an understanding of yourself because you're able to have a level of appreciation that you wouldn't be able to access if the only version of yourself that you valued or you held on to was how others interpret you, if that makes sense. So I think if you're trying to be yourself, you're trying to take up more spaces of yourself, you're trying to be more confident, first find ways to be with yourself in lower stakes type situations, and then find places where you can be yourself that demand a little bit less from you. And by that, I mean like seeking opportunities for you to be present somewhere where you don't have to be as actively present. And so you can choose to focus on how am I responding in this moment? You know, so like, for example, thinking of going to a concert in the park versus, I don't know, like the first thing that comes to mind is like a one-on-one like ping pong like ball game tournament, whatever the fuck, right? If you're like playing ping pong, like you're focusing on the performance, you're focusing on like the skills you need to like maintain, da da da. If you're at a concert in the park, you're able to take like kind of a back seat and allow this performance to unfold in front of you and see how am I reacting to the temperature in the air, how are these melodies like hitting me, Do I enjoy this music? Does it remind me of anything? Does it make me want to do something? Does it make me want to dance or sing? Does it make me want to go on the opposite direction? Is it reminding me that I'm hungry? So just taking some low stake opportunities to observe yourself across different contexts, and to do so in like a non, judgmental way. Kind of, it almost, reminds me of how you might compassionately meet a child that right? Like if you're trying to compassionately, intelligently, patiently meet that child, you will understand that this is a person who is, yes, being shaped and nurtured and influenced by the environment around them, but there are also some things about them that just are. And that's something that the more you can have some peace with and have some acceptance towards, some patience towards, it'll be easier for that child to accept all the different versions of themselves as well. And we can offer that to ourselves, right? To say like, hey, there's parts of ourselves that are shaped by the environment, that are shaped by things that we cannot control, that were influenced by, genetics and histories that have unfolded long before we were even a twinkle in anyone's eyes. And at the same time, there's also some things that are maybe just more inherent to your unique flavor of version of you-ness, and finding a way to make peace with that and to like see that and welcome that as like gently and patiently as you would someone who you are choosing to love. And you also know that with that comes getting to know someone that you didn't previously know. Like I said, with like the child example, right? You're choosing to love this child. You've already made that decision. And along with that comes seeing the many different flavors and layers and who they are becoming and who they've been, and new understandings they come into themselves. You're open to all those different possibilities because there's a grace that you're willing to give that child just going through life for the first time. And you can also apply that grace towards yourself. And if it's not something that you're good at, it is something that you can practice. And it's something that you can improve on, learning how to view yourself just as curiously, as patiently, and with as much grace as you might offer a loved one in your life who you've been tasked with caring for. You yourself are someone who deserves care and patience and grace and love. And so figuring out how to show that to yourself and putting yourself in situations to learn how to do that more effectively is, I think, such an important thing. And it definitely can help clear some obstacles in your road. And there's only so much we can control in our journeys. So if some self-insight and like some patience and some graciousness allows us to have a little bit more control over how things unfold, or being able to access some greater wellness as things are unfolding, I think that's really fucking important. And this video is much longer than I intended it for it to be, but long story short, explore offering yourself some grace. Explore finding out ways to get to know yourself that don't require shame or derision. Just curiosity. I don't know, food for thought. Yeah, give it a shot. Spend some time with yourself. I bet you're cooler than you realized.